So let's talk about our top story this morning in the news. The first government-chartered rescue flight carrying Britons from the Middle East finally landed back in the UK at about 1 o'clock this morning. It was 24 hours late due to some technical difficulties, according to the Foreign Office.
Indeed. It comes as Sir Keir Starmer says he stands by his decision not to join the US-Israeli strikes on Iran. Well, the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, joins us now. So much to talk to you about, Mr Lammy. Let's start with our lead story, and relief to you, I'm sure, that flight has finally landed. Those families and those on board can feel safe. Do you know what the technical issues were that created scenes described as chaos in the boarding? And also, why that plane, which is the smaller of the sort that could have been sent, and why is it only half full?
Well, look, let me just say that, of course, I was pleased that that flight arrived at Stansted in the early hours, and I was also pleased that when interviewed, those leaving the plane were thanking FCDO staff on the ground, and that reflects the rapid deployment of FCDO staff and the 24/7 operation that we have. It's also the case that 6,500 people have left UAE. I do hope that in the coming days, and expect in the coming days, more charter flights to leave Oman, and it's also the case that we are working with commercial operators for more flights to leave the UAE and to get out across the region. Now, we are dependent on airspace opening up, we are dependent on an assessment of safety, but people have registered that they are there. It's important that they do that, and it's important that they stay looking out for FCDO alerts and what staff tell them on the ground.
I suppose, I'm not sure it did explain there what the technical difficulties was, but I can imagine there are challenges. I guess what it's part of is a sense that many people feel that we're not ready for a crisis. You know, we've had a former advisor to the MOD saying we should never have removed HMS Lancaster from the Gulf. HMS Dragon is delayed in being ready, and it could be another week still, and then another week to get there to protect interests in Cyprus. Are we ready to deal with any threat to our country, and are we ready to react?
Oh, I would want to reassure viewers that we were rapidly deploying in January and February into the region. We were sending Typhoons, we were sending F-35s, 400 additional staff in the region dealing with air defences, radar equipment. We also, of course, coordinate with our close allies in terms of air defences across the region. And yes, HMS Dragon will be on its way into the region as an additional bolstering of our capability to protect British lives, protect British personnel and civilians right across the Gulf. And
David Lammy, there are all those sorts of decisions are made in private. There are very high-level, critically sensitive decisions, aren't they? Now, at the press conference, it was revealed from a question that there was a leak from the National Security Council meeting. Clearly, in that question, which Sir Keir Starmer sort of did not deny had happened, was that Ed Miliband had persuaded the Prime Minister not to, in the initial stages, give the nod to the US to use our bases. Of course, he changed that decision once RAF Akrotiri was directly hit. Now, that is to one side as to whether the Prime Minister is really making his own decisions or not. But the point is that a leak from the NSC, Harriet Harman has described that as utterly dysfunctional, destructive and a red line. And when this happened to Theresa May, she called for an inquiry. Is the Prime Minister going to call for an inquiry into what on earth happened? How on earth can details from such a critically sensitive meeting be leaked to the media?
Well, look, let me say it's a huge privilege and it's a sober thing to serve on the National Security Council as I do. It would not be right for me to comment on anything that's discussed in the National Security Council.
I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to talk about whether there should be an inquiry into how that happened.
I say that because it's right that we protect any decisions that are being made at the highest classified levels. It is a determination for the Cabinet Secretary and others, if they are concerned about leaks, but I can't comment on that. What I can say is the Cabinet is completely united behind the Prime Minister, who I have seen up close in the last few days demonstrate a cool, calm head in being crystal clear that we will protect British lives, that there will be legality to anything that we do, and that there must be a plan. And that is why we were rapidly deploying into the region in January and February in anticipation of what might take place.
Yeah, just to be clear, those leaks from the NSC are quite rare, which is why it's worth noting that it's happened this time. Can I just ask you, for viewers at home, there was a moment, I think last week or earlier this week, when the inflation figures came out, there was a sense that, goodness, OK, things are going in the right direction. The energy cap came out. We were talking about some good news for once. Now, this morning, it seems that HSB, NatWest, Nationwide, Coventry Building Society have announced that their fixed rates for mortgages are going to increase. Energy bills are likely to go up. What can the government be doing right now? Nothing came out in the spring statement, as we described. It was pretty much as it was before the war. What is government going to be doing? How are you going to be, well, quick on your feet to help ordinary people?
Your viewers will have welcomed the 6 interest rate cuts to begin to see mortgages come down. And of course, they would have been looking for a better horizon, as was being indicated by the Bank of England. But no doubt about it, this crisis in the Gulf and in the Middle East will have an effect on oil prices. And I know that the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Energy Secretary, are working very closely together to do everything they can to ensure that we ease any pain in our economy over the coming months and weeks. But
is it going to be possible, though? I mean, is it a point at which you have to be honest with viewers, saying, listen, this is beyond our control, we're trying our best, but don't expect what we said at the beginning of the year, that we expect every British citizen to feel better off by the end of this year, which is what was the opening gambit of 2026. Things have changed. You know, is it a moment of honesty that's needed?
Well, I think, to be honest, that viewers can see that this is a tense time. Some of this will depend on how long this goes on. Some of it will depend about the ability to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. I see that overnight the Americans have made a decision to work with the Indians, particularly on oil that is currently at sea. So there are quite a lot of factors that will play out over the coming days that will have an effect on our economy. And some of those things can actually alleviate some of the concerns that the public has at this time.
Well, let's hope so. Ranveer was questioning you about those potential leaks from the NSC, or the leaks from NSC, a committee you sit on. This morning we've heard that the Metropolitan Police have arrested 4 people as part of a counter-terrorism investigation relating to Iran. They have been accused and arrested on suspicion of assisting a foreign intelligence service. Should we be concerned about Iranian spies? We've talked about potential spies from China, but this investigation relates to the suspected surveillance of locations and individuals linked to Jewish communities in London.
Well, I think your viewers will recognise that Iran is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism globally. And sadly, that is an effect in our own society as well. And our intelligence services and counter-terrorism police have thwarted lots of action over the last few years. This is now a live investigation, so I won't comment on that any further, except to thank our security staff and police for continuing to keep our people safe and do everything they can where people would cause us harm and individuals in our country harm.
All right, Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, thank you so much for joining us on the programme this Friday.